All right. Again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom to those who are watching us online. Um, I know it's cold out there. Everybody ready for tomorrow? I know, I know, I know. I know I do not want to shovel, but we don't really have too much of a choice. Where's everybody today? The storm's tomorrow. You're supposed to be here today. You don't take off the day before the storm. Oh, well, what are you going to do? All right. Before I jump into this, just a quick announcement for everybody that's watching online and certainly for everybody that's here. The end of the year statements are available. If we have your email, they've been emailed to you. Make sure you check your email that you've gotten it for your tax purposes and stuff. Obviously, tax season is right around the corner. If you did not get it, please let Brother Bill know or me know, and he'll get them to you. But make sure you check your emails on that. They've all gone out from what I was told. So take a look. All right. We've got a lot of stuff to go over today. Got a lot of stuff. Very, very interesting. Of course, we're going to end it with the bread and the wine again. I know we did it just a few weeks ago. We're going to do it again. You're going to see because it has a profound relationship to what we're going to be talking about this morning. It's amazing. There's just so many different angles. It's impossible to talk about everything, even on one subject, in just an hour. There's just so much information. So I hope this morning you'll get a little bit broader view, a bigger understanding of what the bread and the cup are all about and its importance to us. You know, we've already talked about the whole priesthood and the eating of the bread and the drinking of the cup. That's one area of it, but there's another that is equally as important, but I think even more incredible once you really wrap your mind around this. So we're going to start off this morning in the book of Leviticus, chapter 17. I don't know why it's not coming up on the screen there. I don't know, Pastor Matt, if you're in the back there, we've got the, what is that? Contributions. Can you guys turn that screen so that we can put the message up? There we go. It was up there a second ago. All right, I'm gonna let them do that. What's that? Okay. The notes are out there, guys. There's some paper copies for everybody that wants that, so you can scribble your own notes on it. You can follow along in your Bibles. Everybody online, you guys know you can download the notes. So here we go. Leviticus chapter 17 and verses 7 through 12 is our opening text. And it says the following. This is Abba speaking through Moses to the children of Israel. And let them no longer, meaning the people, slaughter their slaughterings to demons, after whom they whored. This is a law forever for them throughout their generations. And say to them, any man of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who offers an ascending offering or slaughtering, and does not bring it to the door of the tent of appointment to do it before Yahweh, that man shall be cut off from among his people. And any man of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who eats any blood, I shall set my face against that being who eats blood, and I shall cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the slaughter place to make atonement for your lives. For it is the blood that makes atonement for the life. Therefore, I said to the children of Israel, no being among you eats blood, nor does any stranger who sojourns among you eat blood. For a few moments this morning, the title and the topic of the message is Life is in the Blood. Life is in the blood. I know you guys know the prayer here with me. If you know it at home, please pray with us. Abba, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that is willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen and amen. All right, so we're starting off in the story of Leviticus. This is, of course, some information, some instruction, Torah, which means instruction about blood, about eating blood, drinking blood. And I want you to notice how this starts off, because it's really, really important. That first verse, I'm going to jump right back to this slide right here. It says, and let them no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons after whom they whored. There were other things going on in amongst the people of Israel in their time in Egypt. And it wasn't just the people of Israel. We're going to find out in just a couple of minutes that this is actually the entire world of its day. That the concept and the idea of giving offerings, killing a calf, killing a pig, killing a goat, a lamb, whatever it was something that was done culturally around the world. And Israel, of course, is coming out of Egypt where these type of things were done as well. But as part of the worship, as part of the systems of worship that were going on in that day, beyond that day, all the way up to the first century and beyond, was that worship contained not just the giving of offerings, but there were very often temple prostitutes that were involved in the worship. It was very, very sexual, as well as the eating and the drinking of the blood. And here we see that Abba is giving a strict instruction not to do that. He's telling them, you don't do your own offerings. If you're going to give an offering, if you're going to do something, you got to do it at the tent of appointment. You got to bring it to the priest. That's the only offering that will be accepted. But a couple of times here, he tells them, don't eat the blood. Don't drink the blood. If you do, you will be cut off. And then, of course, he tells us, as is the title, that the life is in the blood. Why all of this? Well, like we normally do, let's go around the mountain 3 or 4 times. There's a base understanding we've got to get before we actually get to the real message. So follow with me. We're going all the way back in our thinking. This is number 3 on your notes, Genesis chapter 6 and verse 4. It says, the Nephilim, now I put there in the PDP, the giants, that's what it's referring to. The giants were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. And Yahweh saw that their wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Now, we should be familiar with these verses. Of course, this is what leads us to the whole concept of Noah and the ark and the flood and all of that sort of stuff, that Abba, Yah preserves a group of people. Noah, it says, was in all of his generations, he was clean, he was good, he was pure, and he preserves him to go into the world after the destructions. Things got that bad that Abba decided to literally wipe the slate clean. Now, we get a window into this in the book of Genesis here, but there's more information, because when you read this, we're missing quite a few pieces, like this whole idea of Nephilim and the whole idea of giants. And we've talked about this before, so it shouldn't be new to any of us. But I want to give us just a little bit of background. This is from the book of Enoch. Now, the latest or the earliest, it seems that the book of Enoch appears, at least from a historical standpoint, somewhere during the Second Temple era, some 200 to 300 years before Messiah. Now, whether the stories existed before that, that's, let scholars debate that. But we know that the book existed there. We know that it was a book that was found in the temple library. It was a book that was found in the Qumran. It was a book that was read by the early believers and quoted by the apostles and the disciples. They actually quote from this. Now, while it might have been removed later on as the canonization process is done through the Roman Catholic Church, they're not the only church in the world. They're not the only group of people that were believers. You had, of course, the Ethiopian church, the Church of Africa. They never removed this book. It has always been there. And there's differences, of course, when you look at the Ethiopian Bible and you look at the Bible most of us are familiar with today, the Western Bible. The core is the same, but obviously there's a lot more books in it. I think it was about 2 years ago, not the Pope that's here now, the American Pope, the guy that was before him. I think I think it was the one. Yeah, I think it was the one just prior to this pope. Actually, wound up saying that he believes it was a grave mistake for them to leave this book out of the canonization process. Of course, he's a couple thousand years or 1,500 years behind that, but at least that's the statement. So it was there. It was read. Regardless of what people may or may not think about it, it does answer some questions and give us some color as to really what's going on in Exodus. Where do these giants come from and the Nephilim? And what were they actually doing that was so bad, that caused humanity to go so far south that, of course, the flood comes? Well, here's the book of 1 Enoch, chapter 7 and verse 1. It's not a study in Enoch, just a little background. 1 Enoch chapter 7 and verse 1, he's talking about the fallen angels. Well, not really the fallen angels, the watchers. He's talking about the sons of Elohim, it says, as in Genesis, that came in unto the daughters of men. This hybrid humanity that comes, or hybrid angel / humanity that comes from them. They didn't just create hybrid humans. It says in chapter 7 verse 1, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives. All right, we've got that. And they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments. Now I put in the PDP there, the yellow, it doesn't come out on your paper, but it comes out on the notes. In parentheses, charms and enchantments are magic. Or maybe another way of saying it is heavenly mysteries. When you begin to read through the book of Enoch, you realize that each of these angels teach humanity things that humanity was not prepared for yet. They accelerated them. They gave them information, maybe that Abba wanted us to have at some point, but they spoke to humanity about things and twisted a lot of things. And here we get this little window that they taught humanity enchantments. They taught them charms, maquillaje. I think that's how you say it in Spanish, right? Maquillaje, magic. It's also makeup, I know, but you should think about that for a second. I'm not going to go there. I didn't say that. Scratch that. So, but this idea of magic or mysteries that was brought to humanity, and it says, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. So we're talking about magic, enchantments, but we're also talking about medicines, herbs, things of that nature, which of course, you put that all together with magic and enchantments, and you're thinking about the witch with Bugs Bunny, and she's sitting there on the wheel, sharpening, and you're like, sharp enough to split a hair. Remember that cartoon? I know, you can't watch Bugs Bunny anymore. Everything's racist. Bugs Bunny's racist. He was, actually. He was. But that's sort of the picture you get in your mind. But it's much, that's very, very simplified. It's a cartoon. It's much bigger than that. They taught humanity, at least from what the book tells us, they taught humanity things that we were not prepared for, and certainly we misused, abused, and it's part of the whole story of the destruction that comes by the flood. Okay, skipping now a couple of verses down to same chapter, verse 5. We just read verse 1 and 2. Here's verse 5, or verse 1. Verse 5 says, speaking now of the giants, not just the watchers, the giants. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish. I want you to notice the order here. Birds, beasts, reptiles, fish, and to devour one another's flesh. And I think it got cut off on the end there. It says, and to drink blood. They drank blood. I think it's cut off on your thing. I hope it's not, but it's cut off on mine, so I'm assuming it's cut off on yours as well. But they began to drink blood. Oh, hold on, wait a minute. We're reading about a prohibition in Leviticus, which is a long time after the whole concept and idea of the flood. But here, Enoch is talking about things of the past. This was an issue way before Elohim makes any sort of remark to the house of Israel in the wilderness about the temple worship. And if anybody drinks blood, what happens to them? They are cut off. So this story of Enoch in a timeline, not in the writing of the book timeline or the latest books, but in the timeline of the story, if in the story these things happen in that prior to that flood era, the flood comes. If these are the things humanity is doing between the enchantments, the magic, the blood, the eating of things, all the rest of this, then the flood comes. Noah and his family are spared. All the animals that are in the ark are spared. Here's Genesis chapter 9 now. This is the next historical thing in sort of a storyline, timeline here. The flood's over. Noah comes out of the flood, and look what happens. First, he tells Noah, be fruitful and multiply. Have babies. Just populate the earth, which is the same commandment he gave to Adam and Eve, right? Be fruitful, multiply. Chapter 9 and verse 2, and then he says, and the fear of you, that is of humanity, and the dread of you is upon every beast of the earth, upon every bird of the heavens, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all of the fish of the sea. Wait a minute. We just read that in that order in the story of what goes on prior to the flood. Here it is popping up again. But look at the next verse. Every creeping creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as I gave the green plants. But do not eat flesh with its life, its blood. So he's telling Noah, you guys can eat it. Now, I don't know, is he telling Noah you can eat absolutely everything? You can, I guess, read it that way and interpret that. But he also said, just like I've given you the green plants. Well, do you really think that they ate poison ivy or that they ate poison oak? There were things that they knew you shouldn't eat because you don't. And certainly Noah had a concept of what was clean and unclean because he brings a certain set of animals with him to then do sacrifices after. So I know there's some that say, well, you can he told them just to eat everything. Fine, if that's the way you want to look at it, it's not going to change the story, because Abba then gives prohibitions later, and he narrows it down. He says, okay, this is what you do. So regardless of how you look at this, it definitely gets narrowed down later. But either way, he tells them, do not eat the flesh with its life, blood in it. Wait a second. Why would that have to be an instruction to Noah? Everything's been destroyed already. Why go out of your way to mention this thing? And then it goes on to say, but only your blood for your, but only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it. From the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed, for in the image of Elohim he has made man. So it becomes a prohibition to not eat or drink the blood in an animal, but also if you take a life is going to be taken. If an animal comes and takes your life, Abba's going to deal with that. That animal is going to also have its life taken. But why the prohibition of blood? Well, if the story of Enoch has any validity, at least in its storytelling, that's part of the issue that was going on before that created the whole need for the flood. Part of it anyway, the eating of all these strange things, and then of course, the drinking of blood. Question is, why? Why is this so important? Why would Abba have to make this proclamation to Noah? Because the things that were in prior to the flood are still in the memory of Noah. They're still in the memory of his sons. They're still in the memory of his wives. And I don't know about you, we are all either parents who have children or children ourselves with siblings. Children don't often do or always do what their parents tell them to do. We sort of go off on our own ways and we do different things. And certainly we know that in the story of Noah, his sons do the same thing, or at least two of his sons. One of his sons certainly does something different. This concept of drinking of blood from this point on, even though the prohibition is given, it becomes a staple in almost every single culture on the planet, of all religions on the planet. Not just the giving of a sacrifice, that we can see throughout history, but the drinking of blood. Now this is just some background information. You can look this up, or I'll give you, I didn't put it in your notes, but I want to read this to you. Many ancient cultures practiced the ritual consumption of blood specifically because they believed it was the physical vessel of life and power. By drinking it, they believed that they could transfer the quote-unquote life essence, the strength, or the spirit of the victim, whether animal or human, because don't forget, the prohibition you just got to Noah was don't kill animals or drink their blood, but also you kill a man, same thing, into themselves. The practice is often called theophagy. Theophagy. It means eating a god, lowercase G-O-D, or lowercase Elohim, eating a mighty one, when the victim is viewed as an embodiment of a deity. This is something that was cross-cultural. So you've got across cultures, religions sacrificing whatever animal it was for the sake of attaining the life of that animal, its vitality, its strength, its spirit within them, or the killing of human beings, someone that they would say is a god, and doing the same thing with them, drinking their blood to have those traits put inside of them. The core logic behind this is called, listen to what this is called, sympathetic magic. This is sympathetic magic. It is the underlying principle in these cultures, again, was usually called sympathetic magic. Here it is. It is the idea that like produces like. If life is in the blood, then ingesting blood allows you to internalize the traits of that source. We've seen this even in our modern culture. You've ever seen those movies where like a father takes his sons out to go hunting. First time his like 12, 13-year-old son is going to hunt, bow and arrow, gun, whatever it is, and they take down their first buck, or they take down, their first deer, whatever it is, and they go up to the animal, and the father takes the knife and he slits the throat. The thing's dead already, but he slits the throat, sticks the cup in the neck, and it's full of blood, and he gives it to his little 12-year-old son to drink. Why? Because the life of that animal you just took is going to empower you. Now you're a hunter. And they'll take it and they'll put it on their forehead and they'll drink it. And it's still here with us today. At least the background of this is still here with us today. This was done. I'm just going to give you a couple examples, but honestly, you look this up, you're going to see this is every culture, everywhere does this. In ancient Rome, one of the most famous examples of this sympathetic magic, this like for like, is given to us concerning the gladiators. Pliny the Elder recorded that spectators would rush into the arena after a fight to drink the warm blood of a slain gladiator. They believed that it could cure epilepsy and transfer the fallen fighter's bravery and vitality to the drinker. So just imagine that. Because we've all seen the movie Gladiator or, something like that in the arena. And it's, they're sitting there. Is it the thumbs up or is it thumbs down? Everybody's rooting, no, thumbs up, let him live, let him live. No, probably most of the people are saying, no, thumbs down. Let him die bravely, because then what do? They all rush in there and all try to get some of that blood. This is cross-cultural. This is from the Aztecs, same thing. They believe that their gods, especially the sun god, and I'm gonna butcher this. It's Huitzilopochtli, if I'm saying that correctly, which I probably am not, required human blood to maintain the strength to move the sun across the sky. While the priests often offered the blood to the gods, there were also rituals where participants ate god images made of dough mixed with blood to literally share in the divine. The Vikings, during a blot, or sacrifice. The blood of horses and other animals were collected in bowls, while much of it was sprinkled on the altar and participants to sanctify them. It was also a way of connecting the community to the strength of the gods, like Odin or Thor, through the life force of that animal. And I can go on and on, culture after culture after culture after culture that had the same practice in it, this drinking of blood. So the question is, where'd they get that from? Who came up with this idea that you could take the blood of another animal and that its blood, its life force, its spirit, then comes into you and you possess what it possessed? It is sympathetic magic. All right, with that now, look with me at number 4 on your notes. Let's go right back to Leviticus 17, what we just read. So you've got what Genesis tells us about the cause for the flood. You've got what Enoch telling us are the issues, including the eating of things of everything, the eating of human flesh and the eating of blood, both human blood and animal blood. You've got Noah then coming out, and one of the first things Abba says to him is, don't eat blood. Don't do it. Don't do it, and don't take another life. Then we fast forward to the days of Moses as they're getting out of Egypt. They've been in Egypt for all the years, 200 and something years. They're in Egypt. I know it's 430, but that's not how long they were actually in Egypt. Anyway, they're in Egypt. They're getting out of Egypt. The whole Passover story occurs. Now Leviticus, our opening verses, he's given them these instructions. Now listen, now with everything we just read, this should now make more sense. Verse 7. And let them no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons, after whom they whored. Who did this? The children of Israel partook in this. When? In Egypt. While they were in Egypt. Yes, of course, they had this concept and the belief in Abba, no doubt. But they mixed themselves. Ezekiel tells us the same thing. They mixed themselves with all the idols and all the worship, including all the temple prostitutes, including the drinking of blood, including the eating of all that meat. They were all part of this whole thing. And it wasn't that they were actually offering any offerings to Elohim. What it tells us is they were offering offerings to demons. To do what? To gain whatever spirit, whatever power, whatever like-to-like sympathetic magic. And so here, there is an absolute prohibition now that's coming to the house of Israel, even beyond the prohibition that went to Noah. Noah's prohibition is wide. Now the prohibition's getting even more narrow. It's very, very pointed now. And say to any man of the house of Israel or the strangers who sojourn. So remember, it's not just native born. There's people from Egypt there. There's people from Macedonia there. There's people from Canaan there. They all came during the time of Joseph. Many of them stayed in Egypt. It was people from all over the world that came out of Egypt in the Exodus. And what would they bring with them? Their particular cultures, their particular offerings. And so he's saying, Nobody does it, not the house of Israel, not the sojourners, not the foreigners, the Gentiles who are in your midst. Verse 9, it does, when you do this, when you do bring an ascending offering, you have to bring it to the tent of appointment. You can't just do offerings out on your own. You can't just be by your house and decide we're going to build an altar outside of a house. That's a no-no. You don't do that anymore. That's not what you do. You got to go to the tabernacle now. You got to go to the tent. That's where offerings are given. Verse 10, and any man of the house of Israel or the strangers who sojourn among them. So he's making sure you know this applies to everybody who eats any blood. I shall set my face against that being who eats blood and shall cut him off from among his people. Let me just put everybody at ease. If you like your steak medium, or if you like your steak rare, you are not eating blood. The rareness and the juice that comes out of that is not blood. The blood is drained from the animal. That's myoglobin and coloring and all sorts of other things. So don't freak out that, oh my goodness, we heard this message, now I can't have steak, or I gotta have my steak well done, which I don't particularly mind, but that's not what I'm saying. Nor is it what he is saying here. He's talking about drinking and eating the blood, or taking the blood and putting it in dough, and like the Aztecs would do. That's what he's referencing here. Again, verse 12, therefore I say to the children of Israel, no being among you eats blood. Nobody that is associated with the house of Israel, foreigner or sojourner or native born, is to eat any blood. And if they do it, you will be cut off. Now, I know some of you are, thinking ahead and you're saying, gee, this is a problem, because we do that. We do that. But before we get there, so now he tells them, don't eat blood. The covenant is made with them. Here's Exodus chapter 24, number 5 on your notes. So now the storyline, again, we're going around the mountain a couple times, right? So now the story is progressing. They've been given this prohibition, and now the covenant is being made in Exodus chapter 24. And here is the actual initiation of the covenant. And Moses came and related to the people all the words of Yah and all the right rulings. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yah has spoken, we shall do. And Moshe wrote down all the words of Yah and rose up early in the morning, and he built the slaughtering place. So this is prior to the whole tabernacle thing that gets built. He built the slaughtering place at the foot of the mountain, and 12 standing columns for the 12 tribes of Israel, which are actually still there in Saudi Arabia. The 12 columns are still there, and the altar is still there. And he set young men of the children of Israel, and they offered ascending offerings and slaughter offerings and peace offerings of bulls to Yahweh of bulls. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the slaughter place. So it's the actual altar. He takes the blood and he's pouring it on the actual altar itself. But there's the other half of the blood. Look what he does with it. It says, and he took the book of the covenant and he read it in the hearing of the people. And they said, all that Yahweh has spoken we shall do and obey. And Moses took the blood, the other half of the blood, and he sprinkled it on the people and said, see the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you concerning all these words. So of all the cultures there are that are doing similar things, the culture they just came out of in Egypt, where you take the blood and you drink the blood to gain whatever it is, now there's a prohibition on the children of Israel. They're not drinking the blood. What are they doing with it? Covering the people, sprinkling the people. They're not eating it. They're not drinking it. It's on the altar, and it's on. This is the covenant, what we would call the old covenant or the Mosaic covenant. And he sprinkles them. It covers them. The blood covers them. They don't eat it. It covers them. All right? History, time go on. The children of Israel, as we read throughout the history, they backslide again and again and again and again and again and again. And they wind up doing all the things that the nations did around them, including the sexuality, the whoring inside of the temples, including the drinking of blood, including the offering up of meat that you shouldn't be offering up, doing slaughter. They did all of that. All of that. It's why they wind up going to, part of the reason why they wind up going to Babylon. Here's the book of Ezekiel, number 6 on your notes. This is written while in Babylon. And wonderful book, got to read the whole thing. But we're towards the end of the book where Ezekiel's talking about, regardless of all of the terrible and horrible things we've done, Yah at some point is going to regather us. He's going to regather the northern house, which is long time gone, and he's going to regather in the southern house. He's going to regather the split up nation of Israel, and he's going to bring them together as one branch, as one tree. They're two separate branches in the visual prophecy, two separate branches. He's going to bring them together as one single branch, and that one single branch is going to be the United Kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. No more two, one kingdom, and it will have a one king. It'll be known as the kingdom of David or the kingdom of Israel, but it'll have one king amongst them, bringing all the people together. So let's read it. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 21. And speak to them, thus says the Master Yah, see, I am taking the children of Israel from among the nations. So the children of Israel have to be where? Scattered all over the nations, wherever they have gone, and shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into their land. And I shall make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel. And one king shall be king over them all. And let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two kingdoms. And this is what they will not do when they all become a single branch. Listen to me. When they all become, the scattered people of Israel from all around the world, begin to become part of the single branch. What is Messiah? He is the branch. When this happens, verse 23 says, and they, the people of Israel, taken from all over the nations, shall no longer defile themselves with idols, sacrifices to demons, nor with their disgusting matters, eating and drinking blood, nor with any of their transgressions, the whoring, the prostitution, all the other stuff that goes with it. So he's telling us, what do the people do? All of these things. What's part of the thing we're going to, or the house of Israel, whatever that is. Of course, we know it's something much, much bigger than just the thing in the Middle East. What are they going to be delivered from? The very thing that was going on prior to the flood, that was warned about after the flood, that was given as a more direct and pointed instruction at Mount Sinai. And now we find out it's not actually going to take root until both houses come together as one branch. One branch. They were eating and drinking, sacrificing to demons, and whoring, just like they were warned not to do. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I shall cleanse them. And they shall be my people, and I be their Elohim. All right, now we're taking a trip through history here. We're zipping one more time. Now we're fast forwarding. Messiah has come, died, rose. Apostles are here. Saul does his craziness with killing the people of the way. Now he's an evangelist. All great things are going on. And Saul has an issue with some of the people even people that believed in the way, that are trying to make the Jews follow rabbinical law. We don't follow rabbinical law. This is not Judaism. This is not Judaism. This may be Hebrew roots, but this is not Judaism. And so they go to the council, that is to Jerusalem. They go to where the elders are, and they try to figure this thing out. Well, they argue back and forth. The nations are coming in. What do we do with the Gentiles? How do we figure this thing out? What's the practice? What happens? Listen to what the decision is by Yaakov, the master's brother. He stands up and he says the following. Here's Acts chapter 15, verse 16. He's going to quote Amos. He says, after this, speaking of Elohim, I shall read. So remember, this is the Gentiles coming in. So what's the question? The question is, what do we do with them? Here's the answer. After this, I shall return and rebuild the booth of David, the kingdom of Israel, the split up peoples, and bring them together as what same concept that we just read in Ezekiel 37. And the disciples are sitting in and realizing, wait a minute, all these Gentiles are coming in. Is this the fulfillment? That's what they're not even asking. That's what they're saying. Listen to what it says. And I shall rebuild its ruins, and I shall set it up, so that the remnant of mankind, not just native born, shall seek Yahweh. Even all the nations on whom my name has been called, says Yah, who is doing all of this, who has made this known from of old. They knew this was going to happen from way before this. Verse 19. So here is Yaakov's judgment. This is the ruling that comes out of the Council of Jerusalem. Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations. In other words, make them practice rabbinical Judaism. That we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim. But that we write to them to abstain from the defilement of idols, and from whoring, and from what is strangled, and from blood. Wait a minute. What do they have to do? The very thing Ezekiel said, the people who will come from all over the world to become part of the one branch must do. Stop their sacrificing to idols. Stop their whoring. Stop eating and drinking blood. It's going to stop. The Gentiles are coming now in under Acts, and what do they tell them to do? Exactly that, which comes out of the Torah. They're telling them to follow the narrowed instruction that Abba gave to Moses for all of us. That's how we begin to bring the two nations that are separated back together under one branch. He goes on to say, but that we write to them to abstain from defilement of idols, from whoring, from what is strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations Moses has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. So in other words, he's saying they got to do these things. These are the most important things, because these are the most important things that we were told when we started. They got to start here. And then what do they do every Sabbath? Learn Moses. Read the book. Get the whole story. Have somebody teach it to you so you can understand the bigger picture. Have somebody go around the mountain 5 or 6 times to get the one single point at the end. And you go, ooh, that's what they said to do. Go and let the nations, the Gentiles, this is the fulfillment. And they realized it, and so they give this judgment. I want you to notice, it's the same issue in the first century as there was before the flood. The eating and drinking, the whoring, the blood, all of that. The reason for the first destruction of everything is still here with us today. Magic. Sympathetic magic. Heavenly mystery. So again, so think about this for a second. So why would every culture, some cultures who have no connection to one another, there's the Aztecs, from everything we understand, have absolutely no connection to anybody in Egypt. It's not like, they met at a dinner or something and they started exchanging, emails. No, they know not, and yet they all did the same thing that happened before the flood. Somebody, somewhere, gave them some information that if you eat the blood, you can attain the spirit, the power, the life, the sympathetic magic for yourself. And every culture did it in different ways, but that thin or thick red line flows through them all the way up to the time of Messiah. Israel is judged for it, severely judged for it. Now Messiah comes in the first century after Israel has suffered all that they've suffered through the destruction of the temple, everything Babylon did to them, everything that Greece did to them. Now they've got another temple. They're back in the land. They're still doing things crazy. The priesthood that's there is not supposed to be the priesthood. The Pharisees that are teaching are not the planting of Elohim. They are tares. They are people that are blind, that are leading everybody else that is following them blind, and they're all going to fall into a pit. The whole system has made Abba's house a den of thieves. They are nothing but vipers. And this is not my words. These are all the master's words to them. They're not doing anything right there. Nothing. But they know we can't eat certain things. We're not going to drink any blood. They weren't doing it in this day. Not the Jews. We got to stop. They don't go to the temples, and they're not supposed to, and whore around. Who knows? But, from a general sense, that's a prohibition. They were doing lots of other things. And then the master comes, and look what he says in John chapter 6. The Yehudim, therefore, were striving with one another, saying, how is this one, the Messiah, able to give us his flesh to eat? Yeshua therefore said to them, truly, truly. What happens when he says truly, truly? Or amen, amen? Or verily, verily? Those are things we ought to what? Pay attention to. Truly, truly, this is a truth. This is a big one. This is a heavenly mystery. Are you getting it, right? Somebody say, ooh. Somebody say, oh. It's worth the trip around the mountain 4 or 5 times, right? Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Adam and drink his blood, you possess no life in yourselves. Verse 54, he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood possesses everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. For my flesh is truly food, and my blood is truly drink. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood stays in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me shall live because of me. This is the bread which came down out of heaven, not as your fathers ate manna and died. He who eats this bread shall live forever. He said this in a congregation, a synagogue, teaching at Kafar Nahum. Therefore, when the Jews of that day, the vast group of people that have been following the Messiah, they hear him say, you need to eat of my body and drink of my blood. Put yourself in their shoes just for a second. You are a Jew who is the inheritor of all the issues and problems that have gone on all the way from the time before Noah. You've gotten beat up, bruised, judged, scattered, died, temple destroyed, all of that. Now you're finally back. And the 3 things you will not do is whore around, you will not eat blood, and you won't sacrifice to idols. And now here's this guy who claims to be Messiah telling us to what? Eat of his body and drink of his blood? If you're a Jew of that day, your immediate response would be unclean. Unclean. If you were a Muslim of today, you'd say haram. That's haram. It's unclean. No, you can't do that. You can't drink blood. How many times do we have to listen to the prohibition not to do it? And see every culture do it, and us get judged for it for doing the same thing. Look at verse 57 again. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me shall live because of me. You know what he just said? Or skip up to one other verse. The truly, truly. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you possess no life in yourselves. What did he just tell us? The heavenly mystery that was decided upon before the foundations of the world, that got spilt out to the nations before it was time, that they took and ran with it and began eating things and drinking things to possess that which is from that animal. They took and made it sympathetic magic when it was always a holy mystery. Why the prohibition against Israel? To teach them to sprinkle the blood, to put it on you, to let it be a covering. Don't ingest it. Why? Because the one to whom you will ingest hasn't come yet. When he does, then I'll teach you. Not the Watchers, not Azazel, not all the, I forgot all the other names, the 7 or 8 different. Don't do what they did. Don't do what the giants did. Don't let them take stuff that's mysteries and give it to you, but you're not ready to understand it because you didn't go around the mountain 3 or 4 times. You got no concept of really what this thing means, but you're just going to take it upon yourselves. You're just going to start killing animals and drinking it and thinking, man, I got the strength of a bull. That's going to cause all problems because you're not doing offerings to Elohim. You're doing it to demons. Probably the ones that gave the information in the first place. They tried to spoil the message. When was the concept or the idea that there would be a slain lamb started? Before the foundation of the world, the lamb was slain. That doesn't mean Messiah. It means Father and Mashiach knew this is where it was going to go. Maybe I'm speculating here, I'm spitballing here, I'm telling a story here. Maybe not. Maybe somebody overheard it. Maybe, you ever play telephone? That game telephone, like one person hears something, they tell the next person, the next person, the next person. 10 times, go down the road, you start off and you say, roses are red, violets are blue. I don't know, but I love you. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's trucks are green, Fords are good. It has nothing to do with the actual message. It's got some little elements in it. I wonder if there was some spiritual telephone going on. Some giving of mysteries before we were ready for them. Before the time had come. When Messiah comes, what is it called? When the fullness of time came. Elohim sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the Torah, to redeem those who were under the Torah. When? At the fullness of time. To reveal the mystery that we had messed up really bad. What's the mystery? Eat of my body, drink of my blood. And what is in me? That which is life, eternal, now goes to you. Think about that. Think about how cool that is. And how we messed that up so bad. How we messed that up so bad. So, of course, lots of people walk away from Messiah in John chapter 6. Because in their mind, they can't wrap their mind around because all the prohibition said, no. And he's doing all these wonderful works, and yeah, maybe he's Messiah, but now he just told us to drink blood and eat his body. Nah, we can't do that. We can't do that. Saul speaks about the same thing, Galatians chapter 2 and verse 19. He tells us what we can eat and what we can't eat, just like Acts 15, Galatians 2:19. For through Torah, I died to Torah. Now, let me explain this, because, again, I know you guys know, but people listen that don't understand what we understand. Because they take this and say, well, we died to Torah, we don't need the Torah anymore. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, for through the Torah, I died to the Torah, to the sprinkling of blood, to the not eating, to the counterbalance that was given by the watchers. Because that's what the prohibition of the Torah was for, to counteract what the watchers told. I died to that in order to live to Elohim. Because how do you actually live? By ingesting that which is in him, his body and his blood, and it being in you, you live. I have been impaled with Messiah. I died with Messiah. I no longer live, but Messiah lives where? In me. Why? Because I eat and drink him. And if I eat and drink him, I possess in me what he is. Does this make sense? And that which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of Elohim, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the favor of Elohim, for if righteousness is through the Torah, this is important, to make us right, to give us life, does not come by sprinkling. That was a counterbalance to the error until the fullness of time would come. That was the instruction to help us to begin to understand when the true Lamb would come. So everybody follow what I just said? That's really important. Very, very important. I do not set aside the favor of Elohim, for if righteousness is through the Torah, we do not gain right standing by obedience to temple law. You never did. It was never intended. It was intended as a counterbalance to all the error, to protect a group of people throughout history so they don't keep making the same stupid mistakes everybody else on the planet is making, until the one who we talked about in the beginning before the foundation of the world comes and reveals the heavenly mystery the right way, as opposed to the way it's already been revealed to the rest of mankind. I do not set aside the grace of Elohim or the favor of Elohim, for if righteousness is through the Torah, which it's not, the Messiah died for nothing. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 16. Again, this is Saul. The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not sharing in the blood of Messiah? The bread that we break, is it not sharing in the body of Messiah? Because there is one bread, how many branches? One branch, two becoming into the one. How many kingdoms? One kingdom. How many kings? One king. How many bodies? One body. And we're all grafted into it. But there is one bread. We who are many, and one body. One tree from Ezekiel. That's what the parentheses are there. For we all partake of the one bread. Look at Israel after the flesh. Are not those who eat of the slaughtering sharers in the slaughter place? What then do I say? That an idol is of any value? Or that which is slaughtered to idols is of any value? Is there any profit in slaughtering an animal to an idol, of engaging in whatever sexual thing there is with it, of eating the meat of that offering and drinking that blood? Is there any value to that? Are you actually gaining life? Are you actually gaining strength? Is that really sympathetic magic? Are you really attaining the strength of a bull, the vigor of an eagle, or whatever animal it is, or the strength of a gladiator who's just died? Are you really benefiting from any of that? But what the nations slaughter, eat and drink and ingest, they slaughter to demons and not to Elohim. That's Torah. And I do not wish you to become sharers with demons. You are not able to drink of the cup of the master and the cup of demons. You are not able to partake of the table of the master and of the table of demons. He's telling us, you can't say that I've come to an understanding of who Messiah is. I'm beginning, and the bread's the symbol. It's the point of contact. The cup's the symbol. It's the point of contact. It's him that we are ingesting into our lives. It's him that we're taking in. But in that day, it was actually real lambs and real goats and real bulls and real pigs and real blood that they were eating and drinking. And if they do that, if you say you're going to eat at Yah's table and you still, when nobody's looking, you go to this other place and you do that, are you really eating of Yah's table, or are you bringing all sorts of judgment down on your head? Can't eat at two places. Can't eat at two places. You got to choose one. You got to choose one. And that's what he's telling us here. You can't do that. You're not able to partake of the table of the master and the table of demons. Remember, that's what the Torah instruction is about. Don't eat that stuff. Instead, sprinkle it. It's a covering. And then next year, what do you got to do again? The high priest and the whole temple service. We got to do it all over again. Why? Because it's a covering. And you do it the next year. Why? Because it's a covering. And the covering needs to be done again and again. The temple needs to be cleaned out with the blood, and that sin needs to be removed and exposed. And the hands need to be put on the scapegoat, and it's got to happen again and again and again and again and again. Why? Because it's a covering to get us to the point where we can understand the true heavenly wisdom. Listen to Revelation chapter 2 and verse 15. This is number 9 on your notes. He's talking to the 7 different assemblies. To this one, he says this, I think, to 2 assemblies. He says, so you also have those who adhere to the teaching of the Nicolaitans, which teaching I hate. This is really important because now there's a whole bunch of different cults in the first century from this group, the Nicolaitans, the groups that thought about all sorts of secret wisdom. I forgot what they're called. All sorts of different cults and groups, spawned up as the truth started getting out there. We get Gnostics. That's what I was thinking. Gnosticism. That was out there. The Nicolaitans were different, though. What the Nicolaitans did is they believed that they could eat at the table of Yah, that you could understand who Messiah is and still live the way you want to live. You know how we would describe that today? Saved by grace for good. Or, what's that term? Once saved, we saved. No matter what you do. No matter what you do. The Nicolaitans, I hate. Because you can't eat at Yah's table and still keep eating at other tables at the same time. Verse 20, same chapter, it's a different assembly, but same chapter, same concept. He says, but I hold against you that you allow that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and lead my servants astray, to commit whoring, to eat food offered to idols. So if they're committing whoring, we talk about the temple prostitutes. If they're eating food offered to idols, it's not just the food that they're eating, they're also drinking the blood from those idols. He's talking to people that are his. She leads my people, just like the Nicolaitans are doing, she leads my people astray. To think that you can do those things and still be my people. He goes on to say here in Revelation, and I gave her time to repent of her whoring. Her, and I'm sure the people that followed her. Abba's not just going to, do you in. He wants no one to perish. So he gives time for repentance, time to reconsider, time to learn. I gave her time to repent of her whoring, and she did not repent, but kept leading Yah's people to eating things and drinking things they should not. So, see, I am throwing her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery with her into great affliction. You know what a sick bed is? I mean, ever see like those cowboy movies when somebody gets, what was a big thing back then? Not typhoid. Was it? Yeah, I think typhoid. Yeah, you get typhoid. Or there was something else too. pox, smallpox. And if somebody's house got if you got smallpox in your house, if you laid in that bed, that was your sick bed. You know what they had to do to that bed after that? And the entire house? Because anybody else that laid in it got what? The sickness. That's what he's saying here. That's the context. That's obviously a Western context, but the context is the same, or the meaning is the same. I'm going to throw her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery with her into great affliction, unless they repent of their works. They repent of their works. So it's not that you say, well, I eat at Yah's table, but then I can do all of these different things. It's not that I can ingest Messiah and say I know him and I love him, but then also ingest other things that are in total opposition to him. See, now we're not just talking about eating a piece of bread and drinking a piece of cup. We're talking about what we ingest, what we allow in the eyes, what we allow in the ears, what we allow in our hearts. You ever hear the term, stop stuffing that stuff down my throat, or don't stuff that down my throat? We've had a lot of stuff stuffed down our throat as of late. A lot of stuff that's absolutely ungodly. A lot of stuff that is sacrificed to demons. Well, your children have some sort of thing inside of them, and maybe they are this, that, and the other thing, and maybe we should allow them to express their sexuality. What? I'm not going to eat that. That's eating at the table of demons. And you can't eat at that table and then come on Shabbat or whenever it is that your particular congregation fellowships and say, I eat at the table of the bread of Yah. You can't do that. You can't be like, what's his name from CNN the other day, Don Lemon. You can't do what Don Lemon does, walk into a congregation, scream and yell at people, plus his lifestyle, and say, yeah, but I'm a Christian. Because you're eating of the table of demons. And you're proclaiming that you're eating of the table of Yah. Can't do that. You're going to be tossed into a sickbed. Judgment, he's going to give time, but ultimately judgment. The same thing is said to us by Saul in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Verse 25. It says, in the same way also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the renewed covenant in my blood. So Mashiach, at the Last Supper, at Passover, is doing exactly what Moses did at Mount Sinai. He's initiating the covenant. But what did Moses do at Mount Sinai? He sprinkled the blood. What does Mashiach do at Passover? Drink it. Drink it. We're not under this. We're under this. That's what it means that we're not under the Torah. Our righteousness doesn't come from that. It comes from the favor of Elohim, who gives us, by our ingestion of him, his quality, who he is inside of us. In the same way, also the cup after supper, saying, this is the cup of the renewed covenant in my blood. As often as you drink it, do this in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the death of the master until he comes. So that whoever should eat this bread and drink this cup of the master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the master. This is exactly what we just read in Revelation. You can't eat at the cup of demons and then come and try to eat at Yah's table. You can't do that. You just can't do that. That is exactly what he's saying here. But, just like it says in Revelation, I gave her time to repent. Because we've all ingested, we've all been infected, we've all eaten all sorts of garbage, whether it's coming out of your iPad, coming out of your iPhone, coming from the music, coming from the TV, coming from your teacher, coming from your job, coming from the government, coming from everywhere. We're eating stuff all day long. All day long. And we're learning in a process-type driven way how to turn some stuff off and turn our aside to that and turn to Messiah. And every now and then we mess up pretty bad. And we ought to repent. Consider ourselves. and realize I only want to eat at Yah's table. I want to eat at Yah's table. I want to be able to come there and do it with a clean heart. So that whoever eats this bread and drinks this cup of the master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the master. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of the bread and drink of that cup. For the one who is eating and drinking unworthily eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the body of the master. This is exactly what we just read in Revelation. I'm going to toss you into a sickbed. You and everybody that follows you. Because of this, many are weak and sick among you, and many die. Wow. Think about that for a second. Many die. For if we were to examine ourselves, we would not be judged. This is exactly what Revelation said. I gave her time to repent. I gave her time to figure it out. He gives all of us time to figure it out. All of us time to discern things, to learn what the instruction. See, here's the issue. Here's the problem. Because we hear so much, well, we're not under the Torah, we just lump everything that Moses was ever told as what he means by Torah. That's not what he means. The instruction on what is right and wrong, how our hearts are supposed to be before Elohim, that never changes. The instruction about coming by the blood, about the sprinkling, about the tabernacle, about the temple, about all the Levitical law, all of that was a counterbalance to the sin that came before, to prepare us, a tutor, to prepare us for the truth. And that day when he would say, okay, now it's time to eat and drink. No more sprinkling. Now it's time to eat and drink. And so what does he do? He takes down the very system in 70 AD that perpetuated that. Where's the temple? Can you go to Jerusalem today and sit in the temple? Now, I know there's people who claim to be Levitical priests. No. Because what happens, even if all of that stuff is made, so back up a second. So from 70 AD on, what should all of the rabbis and the Jewish people in the first century have realized when the temple came down and the priesthood is no more? Instead of stopping and saying, wait a minute, something's changed. Why would Elohim, who gave us all this narrow instruction, now take down for the last 2,000 years the very vessel of the instruction? Unless he has provided something else. That's what they should have done. And many do. And many have. And I said this last night, and I do not mean this offensively, but I mean this. That makes Judaism a failure. Because there is no forgiveness of sin. There is no transfer from one thing to the other. There is no sprinkling. There's not even that. Not that did it, but there's not even that. So it all got modified and changed. And we say, oh, we're trying to keep the Torah and walk in Moses. No, you're not. You can't. Oh, we're going to build a temple. Great. Sure, they might do it. I mean, literally all hell's going to break out once they try, but they might do it. They could do it. Even if it's built and sacrifices begin. Is that a step forward? Or is that 3 steps back? And we've got a lot of people who eat at the table of Yah rooting for it. Red Heifer, Temple Institute, Levitical priest, Sanhedrin, and we're all for it. Or many of us. Me too at some point. Until I started really thinking about this thing and saying, wait a minute. I'm going to get in trouble for this. That's anti-Messiah. By definition, that's anti-Messiah. Because that removes any validity of who Mashiach was and is. And Islam's no different. Islam's the same. Muhammad tries to take a bit from what he thought were Christians and a bit from what he thought were Jews. And if he even actually lived at this point. Thanks for that stuff, Bill. That was great teaching from that guy. If he even lived, which is debatable at this point, certainly a religion comes up that tried to copy, thinking that everything Moses said and the Jews did in the Torah is somehow different from what the apostles said and Messiah said and the disciples said, not realizing it's one continuous story. They created a conglomerate of both. So there are things that are haram, unclean. You don't eat pork. But you can have 72 virgins. Think about that. What's really haram? And there is no salvation. There's no payment. There's no understanding. There's no taking of what is the very essence of Elohim and letting that be in you that will guide you and move you in this life. And when this flesh dies, because you've ingested him at his command, that body will rise. That's not in Islam. So by definition then of in what we're talking about, it's a failure. It's a failure for a lot of people. I don't mean to get heat for this, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in the most loving way. I want the Muslim people to understand. I really do. I want our Jewish brethren to understand. I want a lot of our Christian brethren to understand. Start to see the bigger picture that's going on here. All right, let's finish this. Number 10, last 2 verses. This is Saul in the book of Hebrews. And people say, no, Saul didn't write it. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. The early church believers knew it. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and of goats to take away sins. Wait. What did he just say? It's impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Saying above, slaughter and meal offering and ascending offerings and offerings for sin, you do not desire nor delight in. Now he's quoting the psalm, but that's a messianic psalm. So this is like the Messiah saying through the prophet David saying, this was never about offerings. This was never about goats. This was never about lambs. This was never about bullocks. This was never about the blood. It was never even about the sprinkling. That comes because of transgression, what started earlier. And what every culture was doing to separate you and to begin to teach you and narrow things down. So when finally, this is what Abba desired. You do not desire meal offering, ascending offerings, offerings for sin you did not desire, nor did you delight in them, which are offered according to the Torah. Then he said, see, I come to do your desire. The desire that was decided upon before the foundation of the world. The heavenly mystery that's been brushed over and fogged over and told in different religious aspects, none of which capture the truth, but pieces of it. I come to do your desire, Elohim. He takes away the first, that is the earthly temple service, to establish the second, the heavenly temple service. This is the covenant. And so this is the covenant he's made with us. This is the covenant you're in. This is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days, says Yah, giving my laws into their hearts and in their minds I shall write them. I will give my Torah into their hearts, my commandments into their minds. How? Because they're eating and drinking the Mashiach. And it's in them. And as they read it, oh, wait a minute. Elohim says we really should not be taking the practices of the pagan nations and trying to worship Elohim in that way. That's Torah. That's good instruction. It's got nothing to do with temple. It's got nothing to do with priest. That has to do with don't do this. That's not what Elohim wants. To do this is what Elohim wants. Love Elohim with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the other commandments. It's got nothing to do with temple. Even Shabbat, it's got nothing to do with temple. Shabbat was here way before temple was here. It's got nothing to do with temple. It's got nothing to do with Levitical priests. It doesn't hinge on that. All of that hinges on the instruction, not the other way around. So that's why he's saying here, this is the covenant I'll make with them. I'm going to give you my laws in your hearts and my Torah in your minds. I'll write them, and their sins and lawlessness I shall remember no more. No more sprinkling. Now it's forgiveness. And finally, verse 24, same chapter. He says, and so let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works. See, good works. You know what good works are? Torah. What do you mean, good works are Torah? You see somebody in need, you help. You see somebody hungry, you feed them. You see somebody hurting, you do what you can. You be a good husband, you be a good wife, you be a good daughter, you be a good son. That's Torah. It's all Torah. Those are good works. We're going to get judged by our works, guys. Our righteousness doesn't come by our works, but the judgment that's coming will be according to our works. What you did and what you didn't do. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, and it still is today. It still is. Listen, I know internet is awesome. I know watching it live is awesome. I get it. I remember just prior to COVID, PM got all of this stuff together. We were doing stuff online. We were way ahead of the curve. COVID comes. Churches are scrambling around because we were told we can't get together anymore. We weren't a vital thing to our culture, but liquor stores were, so they could stay open. We were force-fed some stuff we shouldn't have eaten, but we ate it anyway. And we were online, and we were able to still get the word out and minister, and everybody watched it, and you sat there on your couch with your favorite robe and your favorite pair of pajamas with your fluffy slippers and your coffee in your hand and your donut or croissant or whatever it was, and you were watching it and you were shouting and you were praising, and that was good and it was comfortable, and you went about, you did your own business after that, and people got used to it. Too comfortable. Now we've begun forsaking the gathering of the assembly. Guys, internet's cool. Internet Bible study's cool. Doing stuff online is cool. And it's great because there's lots of people who don't have any access to any fellowship that the internet provides that for. But beloved, there is nothing like getting together with the body. Because it's only here that we honestly really get a chance to at least do the ceremony of eating the bread and drinking the cup. Oh boy, I'm ticking off people. Get up early on Saturday, on Shabbat, get the kids together early, and get here on time. On time. I know. I'm sorry. I got to do it. Got to do it. What are you going to tell Messiah on the day of resurrection? I'm sorry, I'm watching it online. I'm in my pajamas. I can't go right now. I'll be there. I'll meet you in the clouds in like 45 minutes. I don't think so. I want to be there. And it's not an us problem. It's not this was a then problem. This has been going on a long time. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. Oh my goodness, do I see that? For if we sin purposefully, listen to this, if we sin purposefully, intentfully, if we eat and drink intentionally, after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, because the sprinkling doesn't work. But some fearsome anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moses dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve, who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot and counted the blood from which comes our life the blood of the covenant by which we were set apart as common. No different, no more important than anything else. Yeah, if I have time, I'll come, I'll be part of. But I got other stuff to do. We got other stuff planned. I'm going to go eat somewhere else. That's making it common. Counted the blood of the covenant by which we were set apart common, and in so doing has insulted the Spirit of grace. Now that we've gone around the mountain 5 or 6 times, can you begin to understand why he says we're not under the Torah? Because that sprinkling, all of those things were a counterbalance to bad information that spreads like what? Ever notice bad information spreads very, very quickly? Good stuff takes time, but bad stuff just, somebody talks to you about you behind your back, all of a sudden everybody knows it, and your aunt from Louisiana is calling you. Do you hear what so-and-so said? How did that happen? But good news, it trickles. It takes us time to ingest it. Beloved, the life is in the blood. No, my title. Oh, there it is. The life is in the blood. It really is. And we get who he is, what he is. Elohim made flesh in us. Chew on that. Chew on that. That is Abba's word for you for this morning. All right. Guys, listen, we're gonna take time, some intimate time here to come before Abba and before Messiah, and I want to give time for people to consider yourselves before we take the bread and the cup. But we're going to go. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, guys, to Morning Manna, Monday through Friday. Of course, Wednesday Bible study, but Friday, don't forget, is